Allegiance, a moment of silence in the previous meetings. Roll call, Ms. Lawrence.
Mr. Griffith,
Present.
Mr. Haas,
Here.
Ms. House,
Here.
Ms. McDermott,
Here.
Mr. Perry,
Here.
Ms. Radel.
Here.
Ms. Sedman,
Here.
Mr. Schnee,
Present.
Mr. Urban,
Here.
Mr. Vogt,
Here.
Mr. McGinley,
Here.
all present.
Thank you. As far as the work session, items 5 and 6 were dealt with in the voting session. We have a motion to adopt the work session agenda with the removal of 5 and 6.
So moved. Linda.
Ms. Hauk, do we have a second for Ms. Hauk?
Second, Schnee.
Mr. Snee, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any in opposition? Any abstentions? None heard. Motion carried. We're down to the monthly division reports. Mr. Pedri?
Thank you, Mr. McGinley. I'm going to turn my time over here to Miss Morgan. Lucy has some follow-up on our COVID vaccination. Lucy and her team has been at the forefront of this fight against COVID in the middle of Christmas Day floods and just everything else that gets thrown at us. So Lucy and her team have been doing a phenomenal job for us. So I'm going to turn it over to her. After Lucy speaks, I believe Mr. Sweats has some review of some budgetary concerns that Mr. Griffith has. And then if there are any other follow-ups, we'll be happy to take them then or just move on with the meeting as council seems fit. So I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Morgan at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Pedri. Good evening, everyone. I was just going to give you a brief overview of our COVID-19 response, and I'd be happy to answer any specific questions that you may have. Right now, we are working daily with the Department of Health. They've been wonderful partners. We couldn't ask for better partners. We work with them daily. We are also on weekly webinars with the regional hospitals, the Pennsylvania Emergency Management Agency, other calls with the Healthcare Coalition, our Northeast Task Force, which is 10 counties. And those calls include coroners, long-term cares, the LIUs, which represents the school districts, and many other partners. 10 years ago, we did the H1 mass vaccination clinic. So it's nothing new to us. We've already been through it. The community-based testing sites, we ran 2 of those so far, and we're hoping to run more in the future. And KI distribution that happens yearly, they're all great practice runs for a mass vaccination clinic. And all of those things, they ran very smoothly. So we're very confident that when we do get the approval from the Department of Health, that we are ready to go and to do a mass vaccination site. Currently, the COVID-19 interim vaccination plan from the Department of Health, they are currently vaccinating 1A, tier 1A. Dr. Levine announced on Friday that they will be moving to 1B shortly, with more details to come this week. The latest information is very fluid. It could change at any time, but we feel that we could adapt to anything that is thrown at us. So I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Questions for Ms. Morgan?
Yes. I have
Go ahead,
one.
Ms. Saban. Go ahead.
Lucy, it's Sheila Seidman, and I have 2 questions. Did you hear today the new national plan that they want everybody 65 and over to be vaccinated as soon as possible? That was on the television right before I started this meeting today. And
I'm sorry, I didn't get anything official about that yet, but I was talking to the Department of Health, our local representatives, Tom McGordy and Catherine Polacek, and they had told me that just actually right before this call.
Right. And so I wanted to know the question I had regarding that was, would Dr. Levine then move to do that instead of sticking with the tiered plan?
Why, I haven't received any official notification on that or how they're going to handle it, but in my professional opinion, I would think that would be in addition to, I believe they're going to follow their tiers. So they're doing 1As now, and then they're moving to 1Bs with more information coming out this week. So I would think that that would just be in addition to the tiers.
Okay, and the second question I have, Lucy, is why every medical person I talk to and listen to seems to suggest that testing for whether you're positive or not should be done as soon as possible, that we aren't doing enough testing. And so why in PA, at least around here, you can't get tested unless you have symptoms?
Actually, you could get tested without symptoms through the pharmacies. I believe CVS, Rite Aid, Walgreens, just to name a few. I know they have a testing site at First Valley Hospital that does require a doctor's note for that. The state right now is doing testing, 5-day testing. We just had ours at Mohegan Sun Casino not too long ago, and we are on the cycle to repeat the testing. I know that there were some people that thought we weren't doing enough testing in Pennsylvania, and they did increase the testing by 500%. So one of the ways they did that was through these community-based testing sites. Right now, it's in Pike County and 4 other counties in the state.
Oh,
They do
so
5
Lucy,
counties a day,
If
a week.
if you want to pay for the testing, you can go to the drugstores. Are you saying the partner drugstore, they'll do the test? I think it's for $100 and some. And
Most insurance plans cover it. It should be free. The testing should be free. Some people are unfortunately charging, but for most people, it should be free.
and what did you say? Why do you need the doctor's note?
To go to First Valley because they're doing it.
You mean first time?
at-
You mean
Right, so that's not like a community-based testing site.
Yes.
You need a doctor's excuse to go there, but you do not need one for the pharmacies.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Other questions?
Mr. McGinley, it's Walter.
Go ahead.
Miss Morgan, it's Walter Griffith. How are you?
Hi, good, how are you?
Good. I have a couple of questions. How many vaccines has Luzerne County received from the state so far to date? Do you have a number on that one?
I don't, but I could get it. Could you look that up?
Okay.
There is, Mr. Griffith, on the Department of Health website, they have a vaccination dashboard. So that information is, I apologize, I didn't have that readily available, but on the Department of Health website, they do have a vaccination dashboard that tells you how many across the state and then also how many for each county.
Okay. Well, and I appreciate that, and I could probably get that information, so I won't trouble you with sending it to me if it's out there. I can find it myself. Thanks. If I have any problems, I'll shoot you an email to get the information. But the concern that I have is Luzerne County, as you know, is probably one of the hot spots of the Commonwealth. That our numbers are higher than most any place else in the Commonwealth, other than probably Montgomery County or Philadelphia County or some of those other counties. But we continually have high numbers, and I'm kind of wondering why. First of all, do we have a distribution plan? Are we responsible as a county? How does the layout work? I know the federal government sends it to the state. Then does the state send it down to the county, or we have to have a plan of some sort that outlines who's going to initiate the inoculations, like CVS's or Rite Aid's or Geisinger or Commonwealth Health? Do we have to have that plan in place before they'll authorize us to get vaccines, or how does that play out?
We do have a plan, and like I said, we did a mass vaccination clinic 10 years ago, so it's not a new plan. But what they have been doing, since this is a little bit different, they have decided to do the 1As. Instead of us opening a clinic at this point, they asked the hospitals to do the 1As, which they've been able to accommodate them. I know there was a little delay in getting vaccines. Pennsylvania itself had a little delay from the government getting vaccines. But so right now, the way they're handling it is 1A, they asked the hospitals, and the hospitals were able to do the emergency workers, the medical workers. For the nursing homes, they were able to pick a pharmacy, which I believe was Walgreens or CVS. So to get the nursing homes vaccinated, you know, they're using Walgreens and CVS. They're actually going right into the nursing homes and doing the residents and the staff. So the plan has changed a little bit from what we have in our plan, but it's all been very fluid. And so far, we have not had an issue.
So are we responsible for overseeing that the plan is executed, or is that something that the state's doing and keeping you in the loop as far as how that's going out, or because obviously phase 1A and 1B and 1C are pretty distinct plans, and I'm really concerned about the elderly, 65 and above, and particularly long care facilities that are having long-term facilities that are having an issue with that. And I know they're in phase 1, but do you have data, or I'm sure it's probably on their website as well, of what long-term care facilities have already received their vaccine, and if they've received their second dose, and so you could stay on top of that information as a county representative to say to the state, you know what, we have long care facility A that hasn't received their vaccine, and it's been like 3 weeks since we've gotten them. How come we haven't gotten them over there? Is that something that you're participating in, or is that something that the state has to handle?
We are participating in that, and what the state had found was that not all nursing homes or long-term care facilities signed up to get the vaccines. So what we're doing as a county, we've been working on it for over a week. We're almost through all of the facilities, is we're checking to make sure that they actually signed a contract with one of these pharmacies to indeed get and make sure that everybody is vaccinated, whoever wants to be. So yes, we are part of that. And on the website, again, you could find all the information of what facilities in Luzerne County have participated in the vaccine.
Yeah, so there's actually no requirement from the state that says they have to actually get the vaccine, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then so we're in phase 1A currently, and then 1B takes care of our correctional facility and correction workers and people of that regard. How close are we to going into phase 1B at this point?
Dr. Levine on her press conference said on Friday that they're going to be moving into 1B shortly, but she did say that more information would come out this week. So we're very close, but I don't have an exact date of when. I'm waiting to see the press conference any day now to see what the plans are to move into 1B.
Yeah, and quite honestly, and I appreciate the input that we're getting from you at this point, but the concern, I think one of the things we need to do is probably provide a little bit more information, either via our website or some way that general public has access to some kind of information, so they can get some kind of assurance that this, I mean, the vaccine's been out. We still have a high number coming in on our database that says how many people are getting infected each day. We obviously have some people right here on this council that could benefit from the vaccine and qualify in I guess phase 1A actually, right? Are we in 1A as 65 and above, or no?
No, 75.
I believe
75 and above is 1B.
1B.
And we're
1C would be the 65 and older.
Okay, thank you. So we're quite a ways away before anybody can get the vaccine from 65 and above at that point, then, right?
As of today, yes, but anything could really change. If they release more doses, it could go a lot faster than we expected. That's why I'm just trying to say that it is very fluid, and we are prepared. Whatever happens, hopefully we get more vaccines, then we are ready to go. We'll put our plan in action, and we'll handle it as we can. We do have links on our Luzerne County EMA page, and we update our Facebook page regularly, and I'd be happy to share that if it wants to go on the county main page. We could add the links to that also.
Yeah, I think that See, I wasn't aware that, because I, quite frankly, don't go out on your EMA page, but I think if that's where information is, maybe we can put a link there on our homepage for the county, that if anybody has questions about the vaccine, maybe they can go there, maybe send emails to you directly as our EMA director to get answers for some people who are really concerned about when are they going to get a vaccine, where's the distribution centers, all those type of questions that people in our county would have. I think it would be nice if we could give them some place to go to get that information. That would be very helpful. Do we have distribution centers set up? Do we do that, or is that something that state would do? Like pick the CVS's and the Rite Aids and the hospitals, and who picks those facilities to say that you're the distribution center?
The county picks the site. I pick the site with our public health preparedness person, which is Tom McGordy locally. We
Okay.
pick the site together, and then the Department of Health would give us the approval when we have enough vaccine and everything. When we're at that point, we would get their approval. It's a lot more than just the site. We work with the Department of Health because you need the vaccine, you need vaccinators, we need to keep track who got it.
Need
Is it
storage.
21 days? Is it 28 days? There's a lot of logistics that goes into it.
Sure. And you have to have storage that can hold it for 75 below zero and all those type of things. I understand that. Do we have those designated already or identified already?
We do. We don't say which ones they are. We have a site and we have alternate sites just in case there's
Okay,
a problem.
So you're set to go when we enter the phase where it's time for the people that are in 1C to go ahead and start getting vaccinated. We're all set to go on that. You have a plan in place and ready to go for that then?
We do have a plan in place, and in between, if something comes up where we need to open one for the critical workforce, we would also do that. On top of
Okay,
a mass vaccination clinic. There's different.
And the only
vaccination
other
clinics.
last thing that I just wanted to ask Ms. Morgan is maybe I know Matt Vogt is the chairman of the County Cares Commission. It might be a good tool, for lack of a better vernacular. Maybe you could possibly team up with the County Cares Commission to possibly put that commission into action to try and help with anything that you may need. I don't know how well staffed you are to handle all that. I know that, between you and Mr. McGroarty, I'm sure you can handle it without any problems, but maybe communication wise, maybe you can use that commission to try and help get communication out, because I know they meet regularly and they have the ability to deal with homeless people and folks of that nature. So it might be a good way for you to reach out to Councilman Vogt and maybe use that commission to get some more communication out to the people. I think might be helpful. So I appreciate all you do. I know this is a very, as you say, fluid situation and it's difficult, but there's a lot of questions, as you would certainly understand. There's a lot of questions. A lot of people are concerned, and I just was concerned that we had a plan in place. I just wanted to know if you had that in place and where the people could get that information. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing the information with me and the other members of council. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you very much, and I will reach out to Mr. Vogt, and we would welcome any help like that. And it's very trying. This whole COVID, since day one, has been very trying for everybody, and we understand the concerns, and we just need a little bit of patience. It's a monumental task, and I do really believe that the Department of Health is trying the best they can. So we're ready to go. So hopefully that will comfort people to know that we're ready for whatever and whenever we can make this happen. We want to get our people vaccinated and want the opportunity for anybody that wants to get vaccinated. We want to do that. So I appreciate you having me on here tonight. And if there's any other questions, or if I could answer anything or send you any information, please just let me know.
I'll just jump in real quick before we turn the floor over to someone else on council. I didn't intentionally volunteer Mr. Vogt's committee, but he can speak for himself on that. I just thought that might be a good venue for you. But in closing, I just want to thank you for the hard work that you guys did for the recent rise in the river. You know, it's a nice proactive approach that, you know, I know a lot of people were annoyed at the fact that the floodgates were up at Market Street Bridge and they couldn't get around and all of that stuff. But I assure you that they'd be very much more annoyed had you waited until the last minute through the gates up and found out there was a problem. So I appreciate the proactive approach between you and the Flood Authority to get that taken care of to protect the valley. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. McGinley, can I speak
Yes,
to that? real quick?
Mr. Chairman.
Wait, I think Mr. Vogt, then Mr. Sneed. Mr. Vogt, go ahead.
Yeah, Councilman Griffith, that's a fantastic idea. Thank you. And we've made some tremendous steps into the homeless and less fortunate community, communication-wise. So I think it's a great idea. So Lucy, I'll email you. We actually meet tomorrow at 6 if you're available. If not, we'll set up another meeting, and we'd be glad to help any way that we can.
Okay, Mr. Vogt, could you please just send me the information? I'd be happy to jump on.
Of course, we'll do.
Thank you.
Mr. Sneed.
Yes, I also echo Mr. Griffith's statements that that's a tremendous job that you did again. And with all the workers that, I mean, especially I work for the water company, I got called out many a times on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day where people had water leaks. Nobody realizes the precious times. I mean, you only have so many years with your family that those people put their jobs before their family and put the people first of the valley. But what I do want to do is just thank you and all the workers that missed time, that precious time with their family, for all the hard work that they did in preserving safety for those people in the floodplain. And again, thank you very much. And if you could pass it off to all the workers, how much we appreciate it.
Thank you
Anyone
so
else?
much, Mr. Sneed.
Ms. Morgan, thank you for coming on. Information was particularly helpful. I also would like to say, I know myself, I have great confidence in you and your staff to do the right things and be prepared. You've shown that over many times, and certainly residents of the county appreciate all your hard work. Keep up the good work, and thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for your support.
Okay.
Thank you, Lucy.
Thank you.
Mr. Swets, are you? Mr. Swets? Mr. Swets, are you coming on? Mr.
He was
Swets?
just on, Tim, if you want, he was just on a second ago. So maybe if you want to move on to the next thing, we'll circle back to this.
Okay. Let me know when he gets back with us, please.
You got it.
And we'll go down to the next item, and then when Mr. Swets comes back on, we'll come back up to it, okay? The next item is the discussion surrounding the LCTA consolidation letter that we received. And there was materials here, they're still here in the conference, the county council conference room that were requested. Any discussion in regards to the letter? Okay,
Mr. McGinley, when do you plan on putting this on the voting session? Do you have any idea?
voting session.
Okay, well, I would like to get in and look at some of those documents. I
They're
know
here.
Sharon
Been
sent
here
out,
for about
I
a
know
month.
she said these, I know she said she sent them out and I haven't had a chance to stop over to take a look at them, but I would like to look at them because I know some of those documents are some that Mr. Haas asked for regarding some of the revenues anticipated for the merger, so.
Yeah, the audit is here, but it's been here
Okay,
about
very
a
good,
month.
thank you.
Going down to the next item, discussion regarding Luzerne County Tax Collectors Compensation Letter. Questions? Discussion?
On that letter, Mr. McGinley, I think that should be an ordinance, quite honestly. That if we're gonna even contemplate making that an increase in salary for the tax collectors, that should be an ordinance.
We have done it by resolution in the past, Mr.
I
Griffith,
did
asked
notice
the,
that.
Office of Law to review that.
Yeah, I did notice that, and I did look at the real estate tax laws or tax collector law, because I looked at that before when I was in the controller's office quite extensively. We can do it either by ordinance or resolution, and so we didn't do anything incorrectly by doing it by resolution, but I think because it's a 2-year thing, it should be probably done by ordinance, but I'll let that up to the Office of Law to direct us accordingly.
It would be a
Um,
4-year, I believe, because it would be the term of office.
Yeah, and the other question I had was that I sent you the email that said that Jackie Latosik asked you something about an email. Did you ask her for the letter, or how did that
No.
transpire?
I never asked
No,
anybody to send
excuse
me a
me,
letter.
Mr.
asking-
Chairman.
Mr.
Mr.
Sneed?
Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Sneed, go ahead.
Mr. Griffith, Ms.
Yes.
Latosik reached out to me how she would get that on the agenda for discussion. My first call was to Manager Pedri. He did not answer. My second call was to Mr. McGinley, and he gave me the answer to present a letter, and that's how you would get it on the agenda. That's how that all occurred.
Okay, thank you so much for clearing that up for me, Bob. I appreciate that very much.
Okay.
Mr. McGinley?
Yes, Ms. Saban,
It's
go ahead.
it's Sheila. Do we have any idea what that additional cost would be?
I will make sure we have that number for you, Ms. Saban. It's about a 4% tax, or 4% increase in the compensation. But I'll have a definitive number for you.
How many tax collectors are there, individual tax collectors? Do you know?
Well, there's 76 municipalities. I think we
Not e-
collect,
Not everyone has a tax collectors, right?
right. I think there's 4 that we collect. And there's several that are home rule.
Mr.
So the
McGinley, can you hear me?
Ones are the ones that would be collected by a tax collector. Somebody try to speak there, please?
Mr. McGinley, can you hear me?
Yes.
It's Brian. I'm sorry. I had to restart my computer. I was having internet problems.
Okay.
So you want me to go to Walter's question first or talking to the tax collectors? Wherever you want, because I'm the one who
Well,
got cut
we're on
off.
tax collectors right now, so why don't we clean
Okay.
that up, and then we'll go back to the other questions.
Sure. So to Sheila's question, you're correct. County collects for about 5 and home rules about 5. So roughly there's about 60 tax collectors, give or take, of the 76 municipalities.
Okay.
And we'll have the number of what that, in terms of
Yep.
cost.
We'll get you a definitive number. Ms.
Okay.
Saban.
Yes, we can do that.
And Mr. McGinley, on that subject, I will remind council that we did not pass for merit raises for employees of this county. So I would like council to consider the fact that, we need to stay consistent, in my estimation. If we're not going to give our own employees a raise, I don't think it's fair to give others a raise either. I voted on the Luzerne Conservation District not to give raises out to those folks because I think it's highly hypocritical for us to deny the members of our own staff an increase in their pay and then turn around and give it to somebody else under the disguise that they do a good job. Because that was Mr. Pedri's issue, was that, clearly the staff of Luzerne County does a great job and should have gotten a merit raise. But we said because of COVID and all those other issues that we didn't think it was appropriate to pass out raises at this time. So I think we should stay consistent and not pass out raises to anyone that we have to be over jurisdiction of. So I appreciate the work that the tax collectors do. I certainly appreciate their ability to ask for more money. But I think if we're going to be consistent and try and be not hypocritical, I think it would be prudent for us to not even consider that. But I just put that out there for council to consider.
Mr. McGinley, could I be heard on this briefly?
Anybody else from council?
Yes,
Yes,
it's Leanne.
Yes.
Leanne, go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, I do agree with that because it's hard to say, and with everything that's going on, to be able to give a raise. However, it's a 4-year, 4 years before we revisit it. Is there any way to put possibly like for 2 years from now, or does it strictly have to go with the 4-year?
We can amend that to any kind of schedule that we choose, Ms. McDermott.
Okay, thank you.
Or somebody else for Mr.
yes,
Ped?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Sneed, go ahead.
I'd just like for the council members to consider in 2014, they took $1 off each tax bill. So they've been working since 2014 under that contract. That they gave the county $1 back per tax bill.
Mr. McGinley?
And
Yes.
again, before, in my statements when they came in front of council, I support the tax collectors 100%.
Okay.
Thank
There's
you.
somebody else who wanted to speak?
Yes, it's Linda Hauk.
Go ahead.
Actually, what happened in 2014 was council had voted to do all tax collecting in-house. And the tax collectors lost a lawsuit on that, but then council members chose to renegotiate with the tax collectors. And so they did reduce what they had been getting, but I remember that one of the discussions at that time was that the home rule communities were only getting $1.50 a bill, and the tax collectors felt that they could not do it for that amount, that was not sufficient. And so certain members of council negotiated this agreement. However, it was not to drop their amount by $1. It was actually to improve it from 0 to what it is now, because we had originally planned to do all tax collection in-house.
Anyone else?
Yeah,
Mr. McKinley, I think Miss Jackie might be on the line to answer any questions.
Okay. If not, Mr. Pedri first?
actually Urban here too.
Oh, okay, Mr. Urban, I'm sorry, I didn't hear your voice.
Yeah, I spoke to Ms. Latasic over the last, well, actually a few days ago, and roughly the amount is, I think, a little bit more than $13,000. Obviously, we can negotiate anything from 2022, through their next term. It is date specific. It has to go in before, the petitions actually come out.
That's correct.
Because they are elected officials. So we are under a deadline to address this. I respectfully, to Mr. Griffith's comments, yes, we didn't give out any raises in 2021, but this doesn't impact 2021 at all. So this would be the following year, 2022 and beyond. And I think the overall package, if you do 10 cents a year on each bill collected, it's, I think, roughly under $50,000 over the course of, well, it's going to go up about $13,000 a year. So 26 probably in the second if you do a dime, and then 39 in the third, and then probably around 50,000 in the fourth year.
Okay. Mr. Pedri?
Yeah, briefly, I'm in agreement with Mr. Urban. This has to, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this entire has to be done prior to them filling out petitions because they are elected officials. The agreement has to be for 4 years. You can set it up however you want to do during that 4-year period, but it has to be over their entire term. Because they're elected officials, they have to know what they'll be compensated during the time that they run. The second issue that I wanted to bring up on behalf of the administration is if council would be so inclined to negotiate into this agreement that every tax collector has to have 2 signers on their accounts. We've had issues in our past with our tax collectors where there were very unfortunate incidences where people were sick. That tax collector was not able to sign because they have been were sick and infirmed. So that means that the county can't get the checks back. So we're going to ask that every single tax collector has 2 separate signers on their accounts. So either one of them could remit those fundings back to Luzerne County. That would be our recommendation on behalf of administration, in addition to whatever other things that you would like to put onto into the agreement as well.
Thank you. Ms. Latasic, are you on the line? Ms. Latasic? I think that's how to pronounce your last, Ms. Latasic? I see a whole bunch of phone numbers that I don't recognize the numbers. Would you like to speak, Ms. Latasic? Okay, if not, if she would like to come on the next time we meet, that would be fine. So we have that discussion. It will be on the voting session. And like I said, that we can provide any of the criteria that we wish in that regard. I think there are a lot of good points made. And if you look back at the resolution in 2017, there are several criteria in that resolution that were part of that resolution that was agreed to. So, Mr. Swets?
Mr. Chair, if I may too.
Mr.
Chair,
Hoff,
Harry
go ahead.
has- Yeah, thank you, sir. I know that there's some new members on council, and we went around and around about this in the early years of home rule. And really, this comes down to two different schools of thought. Either you support local tax collection, and I mean, they for the most part, tax collectors do a good service, they do a great job. And the thing is, the whole system is just archaic, and that was the conclusion that it took me a lot of thought to think this through. So again, new members, before we leave on, really research this issue, because it's more than just increasing 10 cents a bill. There's tax collectors get paid on uncollected bills, and that was a big issue at the time. And just like Ms. Hauk said, it was $3.50 a bill, and it was renegotiated down to $2.50 after a council majority voted to save money and do tax collection in-house and pay bills online or through the mail, just like every single other bill you get. And really, that's what the debate comes down to it. You can talk about, it's great, they're local elected officials that are there, but you pay every single other bill through the mail, except for tax collection. And then they also, tax collectors also collect school and municipal bills too. So again, we're only really 1/3 of the puzzle. But I just can't support this. It's a part-time job, just like this council is. It should be it shouldn't be a notorious increase, and it's a service. It's not a way to get a super income. We have a couple tax collectors, South County, make $100,000 a year for collecting taxes. So again, if we could do that in-house altogether, it would save us a lot of money here at the county level. But I think that ship sailed out a few years ago when the council reversed what I thought was a very good, positive leap forward for home rule. Thank you.
Okay.
And Mr. McGinley, if I could, one more time.
Yep.
On this issue. The other concern to tack on with Harry is we also pay their bond for those municipal tax collectors for the county tax that they collect. And the other concern is that if possibly, and I know this is probably a document that's probably available by Mr. Swets and maybe the manager, is could we have a comparison of what we pay the county tax collectors and what it would cost us to do it in-house again? I know we did that in 2014, and that's where that all transpired back in the day. But so we can make an informed decision, what would the cost be to the county if we collected taxes in-house? And what would the cost be if we paid the tax collectors to do the job? Would be, information that would be pretty helpful for members of council to decide which way they'd like to go. So if we could get that information before next meeting, so we can make informed decisions, that'd be helpful for me.
Okay. Mr. Swets?
Yes, Mr. McGinley.
Want to go back to the earlier questions from Mr. Griffith, I think, on your financial report?
Sure. So I think the first question was related to a $500,000 or $750,000 surplus, and this was, pre-CARES funding. When we presented the budget, we talk about projected surpluses and where we think we're going to end the year. And this will be very high level because I'll be presenting my reports 2 weeks from now. But just to give some of the new members some information. So we do the hard close mid-February, usually about February 12th would be a Friday this year. So I'm thinking that would be the date. Right now, we're still obviously in 2 years. So we're getting some services for 2021, still getting some bills for 2020. We'll have a much better number in 2 weeks. But I think the process is that number, whatever it may be, the audit number is really provided at the time of the audit. We always give an unaudited number. And we will, for the next meeting, try to get the high-level things. So stuff like retirement, healthcare, some of the bigger numbers. Even though it won't be audited, give the council an idea of where we think 2020 is going to land, with the reservation that, there's other parts of the audit. This was really just the county control part. So just so everyone's aware of that. And I think I kind of added that to the manager's report and some of my numbers that, these are the unaudited numbers and that's the process every year. And I think the other thing, which I'll also go into greater detail at the next meeting, but just so everyone knows that we are looking at it and we have been, is, the CARES funding in and of itself, county got that money on or around July 15th. Up until December 27th, that money had to be spent by December 30th. So up until then, there was no change. We were filing monthly reports with DCD. The final monthly report is due February 1st. That program at a minimum will be audited by our county auditors for financial audit and single audit. It's already reported on by DCD, and there may be federal or state auditing, not just for Luzerne County, but the program in general. So our focus has been on that. The one issue that we're working through is obviously the mail, which everybody's had. So when this program was put together, our idea was we did not want to go by people's number, their routing number, to send information because of some kind of key punch that was made. We thought checks were the most secure. Obviously, this, as I said, this happened in July. So we've had some checks now that we sent out in December that either we're voiding and people are coming to pick up, or they haven't been cashed yet. So I think in 2 weeks, I'll have a good accounting of here's the dollars, here's what went to municipalities, here's what went to the county, and then council can make an informed decision at that time. Again, the final number, the final audit number won't be until the time of the audit report, and council has never waited that long, nor would I advise them to. So I'll have information for next meeting of our best guess on audit for the year end and an update on the CARES money.
Thank you. Okay.
I have, Mr. McGinley, I have other questions for Mr. Swets, if he could help me.
Go ahead.
Mr. Swets, on the other question that I had that I needed answered was, what did we do with our county reserve fund money that we had from 2020? And then, because in 2021, we budgeted, I'm just throwing a number out, I think it was 600 and some thousand that we finally ended up putting into our county reserve. Yeah, county reserve fund for 2021. What happened to the money from 2020? Can we use that money to pay a bill for 2021 and put that money that we're paying that bill for back into the reserve for 2021 then?
You could. I wouldn't recommend it, and for a few reasons. Number one, I said I'd wait until you get the numbers from me for the next meeting. Number two, while you can do that, there may be a better use for that money, and I'll leave that up to the majority of council. If there's another project or something to that impact. But yes, if you have money, if nothing was done, it would end up in the audit surplus, assuming there is an audit surplus. So right now we're looking at a surplus. We've had a surplus the last couple of years. If nothing is done and county were to end up at $500,000 to the good, that would really mean that county basically broke even, and that was the money that was in the reserve fund. That would basically.
Well, yeah, because we had about $600,000, I think, in our reserve in 2020. At the end, because we didn't obviously spend it, we transferred the $210,000 over into that fund as well. So we had almost $500,000 sitting in the reserve fund that we could use in 2021 to pay a bill or transfer it to the county reserve in 2021. I wouldn't want to wait until we lock down the books and then not be able to touch that money, because that gives us $1 million in reserve for county council. That's a sizable chunk of money that if we transfer that money over, we'll have, correct?
It is, but I would just caution, and again, whatever the will of the council is, I'll provide the numbers, that we already in 2021 have a pretty sizable number with the budget changes and the amendments that were done through the council. You can add to that, you absolutely could, and we'll give you not only that best guess number, but also, our best guess on CARES. I just would want to say two things. Number one, we've talked about, we haven't gone into great detail, but yes, county made cuts. There was voluntary and involuntary furloughs during the COVID crisis. And we've talked about revenues, and particularly service-based revenues. So to no fault of these division heads or the department heads is primarily, tax related, judicial related. So not county property taxes. I'm talking about elite revenue services because sales were postponed or postponed twice. And these things got pushed into 2021. So while you have the right to do that, and we'll provide the information, we also need to be cognizant that we didn't make all our revenue numbers, and maybe we don't want to move it, or maybe we want to move a portion of it. So we'll provide the information to let council decide, but it's not just, hey, county has $1 million, we can move another $1 million into the next year, or we can use this to pay a bill or pay something down. It's not that simple. The ordinance or resolute, that part is, the council part and the office of law part is, it's just more of the cash flow and actually what do we think the true number is going to be. And we'll have all that for the My Financial Reports 2 weeks from now. You'll get that in the packet before the report. So you'll have it, the Thursday or Friday before the meeting.
Yeah, because you're talking about a $750,000 surplus. That was without county council's reserve. So you're going to have a surplus in the budget apparently from the management, saving the money and not spending it in places and because of COVID and all of the things that contributed to the fact that we didn't spend a lot of the money that was budgeted. And you're anticipating $750,000, plus the county council had, almost a half a million in their county reserve fund. Plus we budgeted $600,000 or more into the 2021 amount of money. So if we don't move the money from the county reserve fund or spend it in 2021, we're going to have almost $1 million surplus next year, correct?
Well, yes, but I guess a couple of things. So number one, while council can do things more than once, and as I said, we'll prepare the information, council can move money more than once. You can move it when the audit's done, but also our goal has been to, not only pay the bills as they come in, but to work to lower the TRAN. And I think I said at the time of the TRAN, that had it not been for COVID, we probably would have went for $1 million reduction. So we're looking at not just paying bills, but, sustainable year over year things. That was at $18 million not so many years ago. We got it to 16. If we can get it to 15.5 or 15 by saying, yes, council's not going to use this money, but we're not going to borrow that money at the end of the year. And again, we'll provide the information and whatever the majority of council decides. I'm not trying to debate you or all of council. I'm just saying there's more than one option, and we'll prepare the information for you.
Yeah, but we would have to do that before you lock down the books, correct, in February?
You could, yes, because the issue becomes, once the books are locked down, it's really just audit entries. So you're not going to go back in, February of 2021 and say, I want to do this with 2020 money. So that's correct. But we're looking to provide this information for the next meeting, the 26th, which would be before we lock down the books and give us time to get a better number than I have tonight.
Okay, and the other thing that I wanted to ask about was the bond money that we were supposed to pay down the 2019 bond from the reimbursement of the voting machines. Can we still do that? Because, I think it's important that we take that money and put it back on the bond to reduce the principal on that bond that we borrowed the money for it. So if we could you explain how we do that?
Yeah, well, I think we can still do it. So as I said earlier, the year's still open, even though the calendar moved back. If it's something that took place in last year and last year is not closed, we can still do that. I think the issue was, can we do it? Sure. Can we make a payment on debt? Is it a good idea? Absolutely. Is it going to have a material impact? And again, if that's what council wants to do, we'll do it. We still have over 200 million when you throw principal and interest close to 250, and 300,000 is nice, but if somebody has a $100,000 mortgage and pays an extra $10, it's not going to make that big of a deal. So again, whatever council wants to do, we'll provide the information. I'll look back at when we got the money and tell you where we put it. If council wants to move it, we'll gladly move it.
And to that point the issue was that if I say to you, hey, I want to borrow $20 and I'll pay it back to you, and you give it to me, and then I say, well, you know what, it's only $20, I'll give you $1 on it. That's what happened with the bond in 2019, was when council was discussing borrowing that money and they were told that by the governor, we had to buy the machines and they were reimbursing us. I remember specifically sitting in the audience hearing council members saying, well, when we get that money, can we pay down the bond? And the bond council said, absolutely, you can. I think it was PFM. And so that was pretty contingent on why they allowed us to borrow, not why they allowed us, but why council kind of agreed to borrow the $33 million to refinance the other debts and pay for the 911 issue and pay for voting machines. So now that we have the money reimbursed from the state, I think it's imperative that we live up to our word to the taxpayers and pay that $1.5 million or whatever it was that we got reimbursed, plus the 360,000 on the principal. Yeah, will it make a big dent in 33 million? No, but it's better than nothing. It's better than what we did in the past, where we just borrowed more money and never paid any of it back. So I think it's a step in the right direction for the people of the county to feel comfortable with the council doing the right thing with their money, because actually we borrowed, it's their money. So I think that would be something we should do. And if the majority council wants to do that, maybe Office of Law could draft that resolution or ordinance.
We'll talk more about that when we get the full report from Mr. Swets.
Sounds good.
That's an option.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thanks, Mr. Swets. We're down to number 4, discussing regarding resolution providing tax exemption for new construction in deteriorated areas under the Local Economic Revitalization Tax Assistance Act. We talked about this before the Christmas break, and Attorney Rinaldi is on the line with us. And anyone with questions, Attorney Rinaldi is available. Questions regarding the tax exemption?
I have a question, Mr. McGinley.
Okay.
This is alerta, and this should be an ordinance. That's my first question, because we are forgiving taxes. So that should be an ordinance.
Again, we'll refer that to the Office of Law, and we'll follow their advice.
Okay.
Anyone else?
And the second question on the alerta is, I'm not a big fan of this alerta to start with, but one of the provisions that's in the alerta is that says that the person who gets the alerta, if he sells the property, that alerta goes to the new person.
Right.
I don't believe that that's appropriate for us to have in there, only because what happened with Trammell with the North Point property, where we gave alerta to them, and then the next thing you know, we found out that the property was sold, and now the alerta went to the new person. Thankfully, we had North Point as the developer. So, but I'm not in favor of that clause that's in the alerta. I would be very hard pressed to even think about voting in the affirmative for this ordinance to do that. And the other issue is that, I think if we're good enough to give a 10-year alerta to a company that says we're going to just let them have 100% tax forgiveness, I think it would be incumbent on that person to say that they won't come for and I know this was discussed, they won't come for a reduction in their taxes when the 10 years are up. And I disagree that that's their constitutional right to do that. I think it's an agreement, it's a contract. They can certainly decide, if we decide that that's part of the deal, then that should be part of the deal. But I don't feel giving 100% alerta to anybody in this county is appropriate. I think we could give a sliding scale, and those particular issues are troublesome for me in their agreement. So,
other members of council?
Yes, this is Leanne.
Go ahead, Mr. McDermott.
I believe Mr. Keel may have been open to not having, or possibly discussing not having the 100% abatement for 10 years. So is that something that we would be able to work on so that it would not be 100% abatement for the 10 years?
I think council can do any kind of schedule they wish. Whether in this case, the developer would be amenable to that, that would be something that he would have to discuss. Attorney Rinaldi, do you have any comment about that?
Yes, in the first proposal that was presented to council, it was a request for 100% abatement on the improvement for a period of 10 years. As I indicated in my memo and in our previous discussion, the county would still receive the real estate tax on the land on the subject property. I forwarded a memo, I know it was on the agenda or circulated to the other members of the council, where the total tax dollars collected on the entire site, over 393 acres, for the 3 taxing bodies is approximately $16,000. Of that amount, approximately $4,000 is paid to the county right now. My client is requesting 100% abatement because of the issues with this site. Those of you who are familiar with the Hazleton area, this was a former mine site. And then in the 60s or 70s, there was 2 landfills, municipal landfills that were operated by the city. There's still remediation work under consent order with DEP to remediate those areas. Those include capping the old landfill areas and bringing the site to development grade. My client has to expend a considerable amount of sums to bring this site to development grade. We are requesting 100% abatement for those reasons. But there is room in our discussions with the school district. The school district negotiated a term where during the 10-year period, a payment of $30,000 per year would be made to the school district. My client has made other representations to the school district to help alleviate some of their tasks and to provide some type of job training to the VOTEC students or high school students that are interested. The companies that we would be attracting like those types of programs. We'd be interested in doing those similar types of programs if the county has them available or would have a request for them. This is a considerable project, sorely needed for the city of Hazleton. This site has remained vacant for in excess of 60 years, and this is a client that would want to move forward with development. If there is a request from the county for additional funding during that 10-year period, if there's discussion regarding it, I will take it to my client and he will give it thorough consideration and a possible payment to the county in excess of the current taxes that are currently received. If there's any proposals that you'd like me to discuss with my client, I'd be willing, and I'm certain my client would seriously consider those options.
Other questions?
Just a question, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Haas.
Hi, Mr. Rowley. Thanks for coming out tonight.
No problem.
Could you refresh us what, and I know that these projects, like your client said, that require a lot of risk, and that's the nature of development.
Yes.
Construction, obviously. What was the estimated amount of investment that you're
over $500 million.
$500 million. So we're talking like
Yes.
a $500 million investment.
That's correct. That's the way the math works.
Just amazing.
Yes.
So with the taxes, you're talking about $4,000 currently on the land as it is.
Correct.
And then with the improvements, if he's going to invest that much money, $500 million, I don't see where several $1,000s worth of taxes is going to be a deal breaker. I know he spoke about 100% because of the risk.
In my proposal, in my proposal previously, utilizing real buildings assessed in Luzerne County, we estimated when the project is fully online, the 5.5 million square feet developed, that $14,000 that's currently collected on the site would now be between $5 and $6 million a year. Not including any, earned income tax, all the other permit fees, all the other development that we believe will be brought to the city of Hazleton, the amount of jobs, a large development of this size will bring benefit to the city of Hazleton and the surrounding area.
And that truly is amazing. $6 million, every politician loves hearing about that because it can fund their government. But, and what Walter said, this is not my first rodeo. I've been here for so many years, and every time we get these estimated amounts of taxes coming in, and then just like you said, they go to court, and then they're assessed at half of what the original projection was. Again, we're looking for some assurance that after 10 years, we're not going to be left holding the bag once again, and like we did with Trammell Crow. Again, fool me once, shame on me, but it's a hard pill. It's a hard pill for me. So
I hope you understand. My client is not necessarily always the end user of the buildings. These buildings are built sometimes on speculation, sometimes built to certain requirements that those large companies that wish to purchase to come here. The need for assignment is always necessary. That's number one. Number two, with regards to Mr. Griffith's comment about my client's right to appeal their assessment. I hope you take, consideration that if an assessment is incorrect, if I believe it's incorrect or you believe it's incorrect, there's a way to resolve that. There's a process that's put in place. I believe it's fair and understanding. If I disagree with that assessment, I have the right to appeal it. If you disagree as the county or any of the taxing bodies, those taxing bodies have a right to appeal that same assessment. So if the school district believes the assessment placed on the property by the Board of Assessment is incorrect, meaning too low, the school district has a right to appeal it. And so would the municipality and or the county for that matter. So I would hope that you respect that I would not want to waive my client's constitutional rights to challenge or review their assessment appeal. We can't have one certain individual be the end case for an assessment. There's a process that's put in place by the county government, and we would just ask that same process be followed.
I mean, not only do I respect it, but frankly, I'd be disappointed if you didn't go to ask for an appeal, because what business person wouldn't want to do that, even if they knew that they were getting the deal? And that's, again, past is precedent around here. This is just what happens in this outfit. So,
and Luzerne County has been very Luzerne County has been very proactive, has had their reassessment. I live and work in Lackawanna County a lot, and we haven't had a reassessment in 50 years. That's not a fair process. Luzerne County went through the process. There's current buildings, same size and scope. Those were vetted through the process. I've been with clients that said, okay, here's a 1 million square foot building. It's assessed at $1 million. If I get that same assessment, where is my challenge? I don't believe there is any. I don't think there's a viable argument for an assessment appeal. And that's the approach I take with my clients.
and you understand our approach in government as well. We're all generally skeptical of such things, but hey, that's just what the nature of it all.
Yes,
But thank
this
you.
is not, I know it may be out of town for some, but my client lives and works in the Allentown, Bethlehem area. He described his previous development experience. This is a client that has come here and spent a considerable amount of money at this point without, as we say, a stick in the ground. We're looking to move earth first quarter of 2021, which I think everyone can agree is sorely needed, especially during this time.
Other
Thank you.
members of
Thank you,
council?
Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
This is Leanne.
Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Rinaldi, I do agree. This does sound like a great project and it would be so good for the area. I think that, if we could discuss possibly something with the abatement, I would like to do that, as long as council decides to do that.
I'm here for any discussion you'd like to have tonight.
Thank you.
Other members of council?
Yeah, Mr. McGinley. Bobby
Go ahead,
Schmidt.
Mr. Sneed.
As I stated in the last meeting, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for the people of the Hazelton area, especially the city of Hazelton, who's in Act 47 now. I mean, first of all, you're getting 900 jobs there for the construction part. I mean, the man's putting over $500 million of his own money out. I mean, Mr. Rinaldi's downplaying the land a little bit. That land would never be built on. Our children, our grandchildren, that land would never be developed. It's just too risky. But this man is putting out the money on the risk. And I thank him for that, because I'm from down here, and how much it would save the city of Hazelton. I mean, it would actually save the city of Hazelton. And I mean, just what he said, the building fees and everything. There's just too many pluses to, try to, and I'm speaking from the heart here. There's just too many pluses that just gentleman has going forward. I mean, he's an established builder. You saw what he did down in the Bethlehem Steel property there. So, I mean, he's not going anywhere, but I mean, I support this 100%. And I support it because I love the city of Hazelton, and the city of Hazelton needs this place for employment and to be developed.
Thank you for those words. Just to reiterate, the size and scope of this project, these are Fortune 500 companies that are looking to come here. My client has indicated, there's great renewed interest for development within the city of Hazelton. Everyone understands the crossroads, 81 and 80, direct access points out to that system, and the amount of individuals that could receive shipping or within 150-mile radius of the city. There is considerable risk for my client, but one, he's agreed to assume, to work in partnership with, the school district, the county, the municipalities, Hazel Township, and the city of Hazelton. Just prior to the meeting we were at before the Hazel Township supervisors tonight for a hearing with regards to the zoning of the project. And, that hearing was concluded and should be voted on by February 8th. My client has me moving at breakneck speed so we could start this project on time in the first quarter of 2021. Your assistance or this LRTA resolution that, we've proposed, we'd ask for consideration at your next council meeting. And like I said, I'm here tonight to answer any and all questions that you may have.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Perry.
Attorney Rinaldi, my name is Chris Perry. I grew up in Hazelton. I lived there 60 years of my life. I'm 71 now. And I just can't believe that your client is actually coming forth and doing this project. I know exactly where that land is. And it certainly wasn't used for anything more than a dump and more and worse when I was growing up there, and it will never be used again, as Mr. Sneed pointed out. So I am certainly in favor of this project. I would hope that maybe within the next 2 weeks that you can meet with our chairman, our county manager, and negotiate something similar that you did for the school district, you can do for a county. I don't know exactly what that is, but I'm sure you can work it out with our Office of Law before we have our next meeting. I think that will go a long way in helping us move this project forward. Again, like Mr. Sneed pointed out, we need this in Hazelton. We certainly need it. I still have a lot of friends there. I still have a lot of family there, and it certainly would help them move to the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perry.
Mr. McGinley, it's Walter.
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Griffith.
Mr. Rinaldi, are you looking at the document that we have for our work session by chance?
Yes.
Okay. Could you direct me to where it states you're getting 100% abatement on your for this LRTA? In section 3, I'm looking, says the amount to be exempted from real estate taxes is limited to that portion of the additional assessment attributed. There's nothing that says you're getting 100% LRTA, correct?
It doesn't say those words, Mr. Griffith, that it's 100% abatement.
Right.
I'm going to defer to your counsel to explain it to you what that means.
Okay,
But
so did we draft this document?
Any improvement that's placed on the property would be abated from the real estate tax for the county.
So if we wanted to negotiate that, if council wanted to have a discussion about how to do that, that would be the section that we would be discussing, correct?
Yes.
Okay, because if it's going to go on the agenda for 2 weeks, in 2 weeks, we're going to have to figure out some way that the council's going to have a discussion, whether they want to do that or not, whether they want to discuss whether they want a sliding scale abatement, or they want to give 100% abatement, or what, because the document says it doesn't say 100%, but as you say, it says there, anything that's an improvement is abated.
Correct.
It's exempted. So, most other LRTAs that we've had, I think it actually put a number in there and said what that was. So that's why I was kind of confused about where that document states that it's 100% abatement. So, all right, that was my question: is does anybody does council want 100% abatement?
Anyone else from council with questions? Thank you, Mr. Rinaldi, for being on the line. We appreciate your time. We look forward to meeting in 2 weeks from now, hopefully.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Have a good evening.
Moving down, with 5 and 6, we dealt with the voting session. So number 7, this is also submitted by Mr. Griffith. Discussion regarding a motion to amend the rules and procedures of operation for Luzerne County Council, last amended May 12, 2020. Questions?
And if I could elaborate on that, Mr. McGinley, basically what this motion is I know Ms. Saidman, myself, and a couple others, I see Chris Perry's camera's on now, always have their camera on when we're at a public meeting. I think it's imperative, and I know Mr. Knapp brought this up, but I think Mr. Shiner brought it up in the past. These meetings are public meetings. Even though they're virtual, they're public meetings. So we should conduct these meetings the same way we conduct the meetings in public. When somebody walks into council chambers, they see 11 people. But when they come virtually, they see no one. They only see 3, Sheila, Chris, myself, and of course, Mr. McGinley. I don't think it's appropriate. For council, if we have a webcam, to not be using it. If we don't have a webcam, if we're using a telephone, understandable. But I think if council has a webcam on their computer, they should use it. I've been on many committee meetings and their computers are on, their faces are shown, but when we go to a council meeting, they're not. So I've made this motion to change our bylaws. Number one is because we've been in the COVID issue since March of last year, and we continually make the motion to accept to do our meetings because we can't physically be present. It's time we fix that, because this may be going on for months. We may not be meeting in person for another 6 months. The ability for us to continually make that motion is like the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. So let's just fix that problem right now and make a motion that says we can meet virtually when there's a threat of safety for council members or a threat to the public, that council can determine that we want to meet virtually. And then we won't have to make that motion anymore. I think that's appropriate. But most importantly, I believe anybody who attends these meetings that has a webcam should turn it on. And it should be on during the whole meeting. So everybody who's attending that wants to see their faces, they can see them. I don't understand why we don't do that. When I attend committee meetings with Mr. Vogue and others, their cameras are on. When I attend the inquiry committee, the cameras are on. But when we have a council meeting, the cameras aren't on. I don't understand why, but I don't think it's appropriate for the public to not be able to see who their representatives are. Because clearly, nobody knows who's talking right now. If my camera's shut off, it could be somebody who sounds like me, but it's not me. And Mr. McGinley always asks, who's that speaking? If he see their face, he'd see their lips moving, and he wouldn't have that question.
No, I always ask that question too, Walter, to make sure that everybody knows who's speaking, so that that's available for people to know who's the one who's speaking at that point in time on whatever comment they're making.
Right, but the public doesn't know who's speaking.
Well, that's why I asked the question. So anybody on the line would hear, I'm Walter, I'm Chris Perry, or
correct.
whatever.
But if the cameras are on, that wouldn't be necessary because they would see the person's lips moving, obviously. So that's my point. I mean, I just want to make sure that we can change our bylaws so that we don't have to do that motion at every meeting from now until 6 months to, have our meetings without being physically present, because, anything can happen in the next, God knows when, that we may have to make the determination to stay virtual for quite some time. And so if council makes the motion that we're going to meet virtually for whatever reason, we should be able to do that. And we shouldn't have to make that motion at every single meeting. So that's the purpose of my motion that I wanted to get voted on at the next meeting. And hopefully council would support that. And I'm not trying to say that we have to use our cameras. All I'm saying is if we have them, we should turn them on. If we don't have them and we're calling by phone, like I know Mr. Schnee may be out of the office or wherever and he's on the phone, or I'm in the car, who knows what the reason is. But I think it's imperative that we allow people to see their representatives as they conduct the meeting.
Okay. I think Mr. Haas, you want to speak?
Yeah, Mr. Chair. Walter, I want to have credit because I click on when I'm talking.
You do,
Have
yes,
credit for that.
you do. You do.
Well, we're up to five.
Something like this, I hear what you're talking about, Walt. I get it, but you know, I don't know how you enforce something like that. And to be honest, I'm on my cell phone, and I look at the agenda through my phone. So that's a lot why mine is turned off. And people rather look at you. They don't want to look at a guy like me. You know what I mean? So I think you're better looking. So I mean,
Not necessarily.
but you know, I see. I understand where you're coming from, but this one, I just don't know about that one. I think that's like a personal decision. I mean,
well,
you know, like I said, I use my phone for other things than just stare through it. So just my 2 cents. That's all. But I see it. I understand where you're coming from.
Walter, I had a question before. We had a question a few months, maybe 6 weeks ago or something, when Jared told me my camera was acting funny. And I said I was probably going to have to go out and get a new webcam. And you said,
sure,
you won't find them, Sheila. You know, they just aren't available. And you were talking about the computers at that time, the laptops.
Right.
And if they had that ability on your laptop, then I would see that as, you know, everybody would have their laptop and should be used with that purpose in mind. I just don't know enough about it. My webcam, you know, it's there. I wouldn't know how to plug it in if it wasn't already plugged in. But if it's on the laptop, then, you know, and everybody gets a laptop like you've been suggesting through the IT department, then that would be very easy to accommodate.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting that it be mandatory.
Excuse me, Walter. I think the IT department, Ms. Segman, has the laptops. They're getting the software and things uploaded on them, and hopefully within the next short period of time, they will be available for all the council people to have, so they would have the access they need.
Okay, so then they would have the ability to be.
That's my understanding.
Okay, great.
Hey, Sheila, just to give confirmation on that, yes, they do have webcams, and yes, they are being finalized.
Great.
Okay.
And again, Mr. McGinley, I just want to stress that I'm not interested in, you know, making it mandatory to use a webcam. That's not the intent of my discussion here. My discussion is that I think it's the courtesy to the public who have elected us to, at least, because it's not about me seeing Harry or me seeing Chris or me seeing Sheila. It's about the public seeing us do our business, much like as if they came into a council meeting room. It should be conducted the same way. And I think we owe that to the public, for they can see us. Not that I could see, because quite frankly, it doesn't matter to me if you don't have a camera on. I mean, I know what everybody here on council looks like, but you may have people who are attending this meeting saying, why don't they turn their cameras on? If you watch the state house work, cameras are on. If you watch the federal government, their cameras are all on. Everybody else uses their cameras so people can see their representatives. But when you come to a county council meeting, I have a camera, but I won't turn it on. So I'm not trying to say we have to. I just think as a courtesy to the people. But I do think that we should make that change in the bylaws that says that we could designate that we could do virtual meetings, so that if we deem there's a safety thing that goes on in the county that we can't hold our meetings in public, then we as council should be able to make that determination and do that without having to make a motion at every single council meeting. That's more of the issue than the webcam. However, the webcam is pretty important as well for the people. So that was my point. So I appreciate your consideration on the motion.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
One last thing. I don't want to continue this too long, but Walter, I see where you're coming from exactly, but you have a little wiggle room here. You know, your last part of your sentence says audio and visual media where possible for a duration of meeting. So
Sure.
I'm saying there are some people, just suppose, I don't know who they are. Maybe they're but maybe some people are not in an office. Maybe
Well, that's why I put that language in there.
Maybe
That's why I put that language in there, because there may be people that don't have ability to use a webcam, and I didn't want to make it so, you know, if you didn't use it, you got reprimanded or whatever you wanted to do. I mean, there are places where you cannot use a webcam because you may be at somebody's place where you want to just use your phone. That's perfectly understandable. But I think if you have the ability to use a webcam, that's why I put that language in there, is to encourage members of council to do it for the public, not for the members of council, because quite honestly, it doesn't matter to me. I just think the public has a right to see us.
Okay.
Doing our work, I guess. Yeah.
Sure.
All right. Moving down to number 8. This is a discussion regarding an ordinance amending Luzerne County zoning map to rezone one parcel of property totaling 1.54 acres in Ross Township from B1, the neighborhood business district zone, to A1, agricultural zone. And there's an attachment that explains that. And Mr. Jones from our zoning planning department is on the line. Questions in regards to this ordinance?
Yes, good evening, council. This is Matt Jones, Director of Zoning, tuning in from my kitchen, and you'll have to forgive me.
Well, at least you have the camera on, Mr. Jones. So
Yes, I wanted the august public of Luzerne County to be able to see me do our business. Good evening. This is a fairly straightforward rezoning proposal that we have before you. This would be your first of 3 meetings, presumably, to take a look at this. It's very straightforward. There is a 1.54 acre parcel along Post Office Road in Ross Township. The proposal is to convert that parcel from being under the neighborhood business zone, or the B1 zone, to the agricultural zone, the A1 zone. This property is it is surrounded by other properties that are in the agricultural zone. Staff finds that this proposal is completely appropriate and seemingly reasonable. We see no possible land use incompatibility concerns with the proposal. It's pretty straightforward, like I said, and we would recommend this for your approval consideration. I will say I heard the discussion earlier about putting dates on ordinances. You'll see that there are 2 blanks here in the ordinance language. We would work on editing this as appropriate before your presumed final vote at a public hearing, which would presumably occur about a month from now on February 9th, if you were to move this forward in the normal process. And so the dates of your presumed adoption would be filled in the blanks here. It would be February 9th of 2021. And all of the 2020s would then be changed to 2021, of course. I also wanted to take this opportunity to introduce our fairly newer zoning staffer, Alan Brzezinski. Alan has done the legwork in drafting this ordinance for us today on behalf of the applicant in Ross Township. Mr. Brzezinski comes to the planning and zoning staff with 9 years of experience working for municipal governments within Luzerne County as their zoning officer and floodplain manager. Notably, he's worked in Forty Fort and in West Pittston. I wanted to just say that Alan is on the telephone in case we have any questions about this item. And I wanted to introduce him so you would be aware that he's now working with the zoning staff. You may remember Jim Weber had been a staffer of ours. He retired back in November. And we now have Alan working with us full time. So if that's the proposal for the rezoning, and if you have any questions, Alan and I are available to answer them, and we would put this before you for your approval consideration over the coming weeks.
Thank you. Alan, looks like you're in your kitchen too. I could see a pot or something in your background.
With the camera.
Yeah, okay. Questions for Mr. Jones or Mr. Brzezinski?
This is actually just Steve.
Go ahead.
So it's really not anything from Mr. Jones or Mr. Brzezinski, but it more along the lines for the county management and the Office of Law and the writing of ordinances and the submission to council. Hopefully that, the solicitor's office will get the ordinance itself, clean it up, and then submit it with the cover sheet on behalf of Mr. Pedri. I think that going forward, that probably be the more appropriate procedure for us, because it's really not within the right of other management staff around the county to submit ordinances.
Anyone else? If not, we will have our first reading 2 weeks hence. And at that time, we'll be hopefully introducing the ordinance. And hopefully all the edits will be taken care of when we do introduce that ordinance. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Now open for members of the public.
Mr. Manta.
Go ahead, Mr. Manta.
All right, there's several items that I see in this last in the meeting that were brought up. If you're going to give a taxpayer's raise to individual taxpayers, then lottie-dottie everybody, you should give it to the whole county. And the county council people should get a raise too. But if you're not going to give it to the county people that are working so diligently and so hard for the county, I don't believe it's fair to give the taxpayers a raise because of the fact that they're sitting at their home and you're bringing it to them. Where would the need be for them to get a raise? Where would a justification be to give them a raise and not the people that are coming from their home to work to the county building and working their tails off and not give them a raise? I don't understand that. All right. And another thing that's bothering me, if the gentleman is spending $500 million on a landfill area, shouldn't he have been given a disclosure to what was under that property from the people that were selling the property? That's number one. And is there a guarantee that he's going to guarantee jobs in that area when they do develop the land? And another question is, how many local tradesmen are going to be involved in working in the Hazleton area? That's where we should put something in that KOZ or the language in those ordinances that when you do get a sliding scale tax abatement, not 100%, it should be a sliding scale so that there's workers in the local area, not bringing all of his people from Allentown into the area and work in our area. Sure, they're going to come up here, do their work, and go home. All the people in our local area are not going to benefit from it because they're not going to get anything out of it. There's going to be unemployed people working in the trades right now, and they're not going to get any benefit from them getting a tax break for this big project. And there has to be some. Pardon?
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
Other members of the public, please.
Mr. McGinley, this is Mark Rabo.
Go ahead, Mr. Rabo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, regarding the LERTA, as somebody who lives in the city of Hazleton and has family living in the city of Hazleton, has invested in the city of Hazleton, I could tell you this right now, as far as I would like nothing more, as I said at the last meeting, and I'm pretty sure that most of my neighbors and my family members would like to see that kind of investment in the city. Nothing would make us happier. The thing is, though, like Mr. Griffith said, when I first attended meeting, if you remember, Mr. Chairman, that was regarding the Hanover Township with North Point with Trammell Crow. And I said at that meeting, and I remember it like it was yesterday, that I said to the council at that time, when you were there, Ms. Halk was there, Mr. Hawes and Mr. Urban were there. And I said, it's a bad idea to allow for the KOZ extension without stipulating that if you're selling the land or you're selling that property, or with the KOZ, if you're not going to sell the property, then the KOZ should stay. If you're selling the property, then it goes. And the majority of council at that time voted to keep, or for the KOZ exemption to allow for it to stay if it gets sold. 3 weeks later, Trammell Crow made $7 million after they sold it. That was where all council had egg on their faces. So in that reminder, I would like to propose a solution to that. I would first like to say there should be a sliding scale. If you're going 100%, then it'd be 10% the next year, 80% the second year. And also another stipulation which reflects on that lessons learned, that clause be taken out. If there's a sale of that property when it's completed, the spec buildings are completed, if it's sold to another developer, then the LERTA that's how it is. It should be like that. And the only question I have with regards to tax collection from Mr. Sweats, if he could provide it to me in an email, I heard that Elite Revenue Solutions is moving from their office in Hazleton to Hazleton City Hall. So if that's being done, I would like to know in the contract, does it say that Hazleton City can get the rental or the lease or the rental money from that lease and transfer it to Hazleton City? That's my question to Mr. Sweats, if you could provide an answer to me or Mr. Manager. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Other members of the public?
Yes, this is Brian Dwyer from Larksville.
Go ahead, Mr. Dwyer.
I'd just like to put forth my opinion that I think somehow, I understand what Walter, or Mr. Griffith, I should say, is saying about wanting the cameras on so the public can see. But as a member of the public, I would just like to state plainly to council, I think we need to be looking at a way to have in-person meetings. And I don't think we can keep using COVID as an excuse. I mean, people are in Walmart all day long. People are in stores all day long. This can't go on forever. The whole principle of part of the democracy of this country is that you get to see your government face to face doing the work of the people. That's just my opinion. At some point in time, we have to look at a way to address having in-person council meetings. It's not like there's 5,000 people showing up. I mean, let's be honest, same 10 people every day, or every time, I should say. We need to make a plan to look at getting back to having in-person council meetings. Thanks.
Anyone else from the public? If not, we received an email that asked to be read at the work session. The email is from Ms. Denise Williams, who resides in Schaefertown, Kingston Township. And says for Luzerne County work session, public comments. I'm writing regarding Waller Griffith's proposed amendments to the county home rule charter. First is a proposed amendment to change the makeup of the county election board to include 3 county council members is of great concern. The charter specifically states in section 2.04 that council members are prohibited from serving on any board. This was put into the charter for good reason. The county council currently appoints the 4 members of the county election board. The board then appoints the 5th member. This current process appears to be very nonpartisan. His proposed amendment has all the appearances of trying to create an election board that would have the ability of being partisan in nature. The majority party of the council would be able to determine that the appointed election board members would support their agenda. This would be wrong. Why does Waller Griffiths think the current election board that the county council appointed the members of needs to be changed? Why does he think county council members need to be on the board? What other boards should county council members be on? Certainly the election board isn't the only concerning board, is it? Second, his proposed amendment for the county council hiring its own solicitor is also very concerning. He is not satisfied with the current county council's work, solicitor's work. Was not the current county solicitor appointment confirmed by county council? Why would it be necessary to hire an additional solicitor just for the council? Is the council okay with using taxpayer money for services already paid for? I'm not. Again, that was Denise Williams, Schaefer County, Kingston Township. That being said, do we have a motion for adjournment?
So move, Sheila.
Okay, Ms. Saban and Mr. Sneed, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any in opposition, any abstentions? None heard, motion carries. Thank you. Stay healthy. Everyone, Happy New Year. And we hope 2021 is much better than 2020. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Take care, guys.
Good night. Good night.
Everyone.